that's what's going to stand them out when they go to apply for those jobs. As you figure out the more that you need to do, the darker the hole gets, right? And in there, I did an interview with them, and it went well apparently. And I got hired by them doing QA analyst.
So first off, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to come on and share your story. But start out with what's your name and where you're located at.
All right, so my name is Ralph. I go by Tech Coach Ralph on YouTube and other social media. I'm located in South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area.
So first off, your YouTube channel, shout it out. What's your YouTube name so people can search you up?
So my YouTube channel is Tech Coach Ralph. I do pretty much a lot of focused on QA, but all types of technical videos and insights and Q&A type stuff.
Got you. I see the YouTube background setup. So I need something like that next. Steps.
I got you. So
Yeah,
it's also like my home office too. So like I work from here too.
Got you. That's the next step for me. One thing at a time.
I got you.
But I'll put your YouTube link and channel on the screen so people can follow you, see what you're about. But high level, what's your background career-wise? Before you joined the QA tech space, what were you?
All right. So right out of, I went to like a technical school down here in South Florida. And right out of that, I got a job doing tech support for web hosting, so understanding DNS and how to configure email and all that stuff. From there, I'm not even sure what his title was, but he was pretty high up in the company. And he was moving the web design team to in-house. So he recruited me to lead that, right? I was like the first web designer for the company, in the Fort Lauderdale location. So from there, I learned about how to do web design and CSS, HTML, all that stuff. I had like a little bit understanding before, but I got a real good understanding through there. And that was about 2008 when that ended, because everything that happened in 2008. So from there, with like actually it was ended in like the end of 2008. So by 2009, looking for jobs, I got a job as a QA analyst, right? And that's how I got into QA from transitioning from web design career-wise.
So just to break that down, because you just said a lot of information. So you went to a technical school in South Florida. Mm-hmm. What did they like teach you there high level?
So I went for network engineering. And so I learned about DNS, subnets, building a computer, all that technical type of stuff, which it wasn't much software related or web related. It was, but something that did happen while I was there is one of the instructors there, he gave me like a pirated copy of Macromedia, right? And just like installing that and using that made a huge difference in my life, to like pretty much one of the reasons that I'm here where I'm at now.
Okay, so you had that networking background degree, so like cool, you get a job, help desk, and then you transition into kind of web development, you said. So was that first transition from troubleshooting stuff to, I got to design and develop stuff? How was that for you?
So because I had got that pirated copy of Macromedia, right? I had an understanding like from creating very basic websites, and like if you remember, was it Microsoft Front Page as well? Like yeah, you know what I mean? Playing with that. So I had a understanding, but just because they were transitioning from an existing team that was out in California, I got to work with them a little bit, see how they were using templates. So getting those templates and breaking that down. So it wasn't too bad. It was a little bit of a learning curve, but I've always been going into like learning new things and figuring it out and engineering a path forward for it.
Okay, so you had that position, but then 2008 happened. Like, damn, what's the next path for me? And then you became a QA analyst after that. So how was that next transition for you?
So during that year of 2009, just doing different stuff, like doing like freelance web development, trying to figure things out, right? And applying for jobs. honestly, the job that I got as a QA analyst, I don't even remember applying for it, but they called me and they said, "Oh, we saw your resume. We wanted to talk to you." And I went in there. I did an interview with them, and it went well apparently. And I got hired by them doing QA analyst. But at that time, I wasn't really familiar with QA in general. I know that I had to do like I didn't even know that what I was doing when doing the websites was QA by making sure everything was working. I just know I'm like making sure it works right,
Yeah, I was in the same boat.
right? So now being in an actual company that they have a QA team working with and there was two managers, right? For the QA team, and they had a lot more experience than me in QA. So I was learning a lot from them, from the other people that were there. So that's how I got into actual QA.
Okay, so they said, oh, you can design websites, you've tested them, and you design them, web development. So you can basically do QA because you've tested websites in the past.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing, some people just focus on straight either be a QA. No, you can have different paths to becoming a QA.
Mm-hmm.
Like you did your web design. I was a software developer who I don't know what QA was initially.
Yeah, and that's the thing I tell a lot of people because like when you look at jobs online, right? Especially for QA, they'll say computer science, computer science, computer science. But I've never heard someone who went into like a computer science with a computer science degree who said they learned anything about testing in college, right? So I never understand like that big link to it.
Because that was like even in college, that was not a field or track. Oh, you can be a QA. No, it was like web design or back end
Mm-hmm.
stuff or networking. There was no QA track. I didn't hear about QA until I got a job as a software developer slash tester, and I'm like, wait, hold on, testing is a whole nother subfield that I've never
Exactly.
heard about. I just assumed that, oh, I develop it, I test it. If it works, it works.
And that's why like I think the work that you do and the work that I'm trying to do is so important because like it's bringing it to the front of the congregation, right? That like
Exactly.
there is a whole nother field that if you're not actively looking into it and prepared for it, it's going to be really hard to navigate.
And that's the thing, because it's not the glorified, oh, make six figures today in this new software AI dev job
Mm-hmm.
at Amazon. It's not glorified like those certain jobs and subfields. People don't know about it or hear about it. A lot
Yep.
of people say, "Oh, what do you do?" I say just tech or software testing because they're like QA, like you're working a factory putting stickers on machines. Like, what do you do? And I'm like, I gotta break it down. Oh, software has to be developed. Once it's developed, it has to be tested before a customer or consumer actually receives it. Like, oh wow, I've never heard about that. And I'm like, yeah, that's the common theme I've come
Yeah.
across.
Like it depends. Like for me, it depends on who I'm talking to see like what level of detail I go in. Because like sometimes I just say I'm a software engineer, right? Because especially like when you're doing automation and like if you get into the infrastructure side, like Docker, Selenium Grid, and stuff like that, you get closer and closer to the software engineers, although you're focused on testing. So I'm like, it depends on the conversation. I'm like, oh, I'm a software engineer. And then if it goes deeper, I'll explain the details.
Exactly. Because high level, like when they say, hey, what's your name? Oh, Justin. What do you do? I'm a software developer. Okay, cool. Leave it at that. Or I'm in tech. I start high level. I'm in tech. Oh, what do you do in tech? I'm a software developer. Normally it stops there. Because my
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
job title is software developer engineer and test. I'm a developer engineer, just I'm in the testing subfield of that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the developers who create it, then the testers who test the creations. But yeah,
Yeah.
high level conversations with people who have no idea. It's different levels to how detailed you have to get.
Yep, exactly.
So right now, what's your current job role and title, and what do you actually do?
All right. So my current job role, I'm a senior QA engineer. I do a lot. Like you know how it goes, right? But from a day to day, I work in a Scrum team. I work for a really big kind of like a video streaming company for sports, focus on like high school sports and stuff like that and college sports. And I work on the team that is responsible for like the video pipeline, like encoding the video, making sure the playback works and everything like that. So I just started there in February, and I do pretty much everything around the testing for the different repositories that we own. So I'll so they had existing tests, but I've came in and I've contributed to them, adding the possibility to validate different files that are created that are part of video. Making sure, like, one of the things that was really tough is testing video playback, but researching different tools that, although you're not testing like the actual video that's playing to see like what's like how it looks, but you can test to make sure that it's advancing and that files are being streamed into it. But like for example, on YouTube, when you're playing the video, it's not like it loads all the video at one time. It's loading it like segment by segment by segment. So using that way to make sure that the video is actually advancing and that's actually playing. So things like that, API tests, and then just recently I've been working on some like optimizing our infrastructure for testing. So doing a lot of work with Docker to make sure that every time we run the test, it doesn't generate a new image, only generating the image when the actual Docker file changes, right? So I learned how to store it in Amazon ECR, stuff like just pretty much whatever I need to do to make the testing work better, I figure out a way to do it, you know?
And that's the thing, like testing is a dark hole.
Yeah.
Like people, especially like just manual QA people who just know the front end part. I'm
Mhm.
testing a website, clicking the buttons, but there's so many different levels to testing. Like my first automation job was just using Selenium, doing front end testing. And then I heard about back end testing, the APIs and stuff, using Postman, things like that. And I'm like, this is the whole other world. And then Selenium Grid, and then Docker, and using containers for things. I'm like, what's going on here? Performance testing. So just so much different subcategories in the testing field that people don't know about.
Yeah, it's like you said, as you figure out the more that you need to do, the darker the hole gets, right? And it's like because I'm gonna tell you two things. So I'll start with this. So at that job that I got for QA, right? I was working, and they saw that I was doing a good job because I was able, like, when I was troubleshooting, I wouldn't just stop like, oh, I found an issue here, like now fix it. I would try to do more investigation to find like what's causing the issue. So when I create my bug reports, my defect reports, it's very detailed. It informs whoever's fixing it what I did so they can have a good idea and try to get things done faster, right? So because of that, they wanted to start doing automation. They hired somebody to do automation with, I don't know if you know the software, but Quick Test Professional. Now it's called Unified Functional Testing, right? So it's super expensive licensed software by HP, right? And they brought somebody in to do that, and then they asked me to if I'd be interested in learning it as well. I'm like, all right, sure. So by the time I get hired to do it, the person they were from India, so they went to India on vacation for like a month, right? So this is like a month into it. I'm like, all right, I got to figure this stuff out. So figured that out. Fast forward, we had a need to start testing mobile websites, right? And every solution that I was looking for, it was like super expensive, clunky, and everything like that. And that's how I figured out about Selenium, right? And I'm like, oh, I can just change the user agent, and I can say the size I want the browser to be, and like from there, we took the whole. I took the whole automation from super expensive, like $15,000 a year software for like 3 licenses, to open source Selenium where anybody could contribute to it, and then like that is what really took it off from there. You know.
Gotcha. And open source, for people who don't know, open source means free. Anybody can just download it after this, start it, play with it, watch the tutorial, and use it.
And
whereas
contribute to it too.
As a paywall, right? Where you got to pay something to actually use and access it.
Yeah, and you can actually like contribute to the open source too. So like if something does 90% of what you want, but it doesn't do the other 10%, if you're like technical savvy enough, right, you could add that to it to actually get that done, you know.
And that's one of the powerful things about being like having open source tools where you can, oh, it uses, I need it for this, but I also need it for something else. Let me contribute to it, add my part. Now it works for what I need it for.
Exactly.
So what are some of your biggest challenges so far in the career field? So you've been in the field for a long time now.
Yeah, I've been in it for a while. Challenges, I'd say the thing for me with challenges, right? As they come, I just keep looking for solutions, right? But I would say getting to learning technologies that I don't use on a regular basis, right? Because, for example, I hear about Cypress, I hear about Playwright, I hear about Detox, right? And I have it on my list to investigate, to try it out, and everything like that. But it's hard to find the time to do it as well because your regular life, working, and now you need time to also investigate, especially if it's not something that you're using on a regular basis, right? So that's like, to me, that's one of the challenging things because there's so much technology, so much software that I want to experiment with, that I want to try out. And it's like, all right, how do I prioritize it? Which one should come first? And then the thing is, like, especially, so one of the reasons I started the YouTube was to actually be able to investigate and track the journey. But at the same time, I've been meeting a lot of people who are trying to get into the industry who they need help. And I'm like, all right, I'm trying to figure out the balance between the content that I do to help with that type of information, like the more intro type stuff, and then the more advanced type stuff that I want to like explore and stuff like that.
Because that's the exact same boat I was in. I'm like, yeah, I do this in my day-to-day job, but there's so many other tools out there that I want to explore. So I'll research it, create a video about it so I can learn about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then those one-off videos compared to an intro level video, the views are totally different. Intro level video, it's gonna go off. It's gonna be a 1 out of 10 on my list. It's gonna be a top video. When I do the one-off videos about, oh, this is what I'm interested in, what I'm learning about, 7 out of 10, like damn, 8 out of 10, got maybe 20 views so far. I'm like, so that's why I find that balance of, okay, I'm getting the new audience, but still exploring what I want to dive deeper into and my interest and curiosity. That balance is very hard in the YouTube world.
So you're totally right, because I noticed it this week. I did a basic video this week about like test plans, test scenarios, test cases, right? Very basic. And like within 2 days, that video is like doing good, right? But like more advanced stuff is like nothing, But I'll tell you this though, because especially with that initiative that you released a few weeks, like maybe about a month ago, maybe a little less than a month ago. I think that's the one that I commented on and everything, right? With that initiative, with that type of content, like one of the reasons that I push for with those more advanced stuff is because those core people who are learning from you and who are following you, getting them to move into that direction and wanting to explore critical thinking, all that type of stuff, that's what's going to stand them out when they go to apply for those jobs and their resumes. Like one thing I've been talking about a lot lately is like your resume. Like, how are you presenting your resume? Is it this? I'm pretty sure you interview people in your job, right? And when you come across the resume, it's like all of them say the exact same thing.
Copy and paste template.
So I'm trying to tell them, like, you need to make yours stand out. So when the person who's reading it, they're like, oh, I want to talk to this person, So like building a QA portfolio, exploring, doing all that type of stuff. So, and I think when we do those more advanced videos, even though they might get less views, that core audience that we're trying to get to that next level, they're really going to stand out amongst the thousands of people applying for the same job on LinkedIn.
And that's the thing, your resume is your first impression. If you meet someone for the first time and they're just a regular NPC, general person, no personality, very vanilla and plain, you're like, okay, cool, I'm not gonna remember them. But if you meet someone that's unique, stands out, you're like, okay, you're different, I'm gonna remember your name. Exactly. That's how your resume is. if a recruiter is seeing the same resumes over and over, just another number in the field. But they're like, wait, hold on, this person did side projects and knows this tool and that tool. Okay, let me give this person a chance because they stand out, they're different. And even before you touched on in the last like subtopic about just learning, and even now, even learning on your own, where some people get into the field, then they just coast. Like, hey, I'm in the field, I have a decent job, let me just coast here. But then other people, okay, I'm here right now, but this isn't my ending point. I want to progress, reach senior level stuff, get more job duties, learn more tools. And employers notice that stuff where, okay, if I hire this person, are they driven? Are they gonna do more to exceed their regular job stuff? Or are they just gonna be here, clock in from 9 to 5, do the bare minimum to get paid and not get fired, and that's it? So having that ambition and curiosity, say, okay, right now I know this, but I can become more efficient by learning this tool or by studying up this new coding practice, using these methods and functions. Taking that next initiative is very important for this field. If you want to excel, if you want to just get in, okay, I have a job, I can pay the basic bills, I'm good, that's for you. And I know people who are like that, more power to them. That's what they want. They have other obligations, other things to worry about. Because as you said, you're balancing your regular 9 to 5 job, your family, friends, your social life, and the other side things that you do, your hobbies, and also trying to learn on a side that it's a lot of hats to juggle.
So the only part that I slightly disagree with is the only problem that I have with that is if the person is complaining about where they are. Right.
That's the biggest thing.
If you're content, then cool, like no problem. But if you're like also complaining, but you don't want to do the work, then I'm like, all right, you know what? That's on you.
Like they're like, oh, I can't get a job. Well, what have you done to try to get a job? Well, I applied to one job this week, and well, they didn't get back to me. A lot of it, for first off, the first job stuff is a numbers game. Where, oh, if I apply to maybe I have a 1% chance to find a job. So you gotta apply to 100 jobs to get that 1% or that one reply for an interview.
Yep.
But people feel like, oh, because I know the skill set, I just get rewarded a job. And that's one thing I learned to come out of college where I figured, oh yeah, I have this new skill set, I know how to code. I'll have top companies knocking on my door to offer me a job. I graduated, I'm like, so where are these companies at? My email, I'm refreshing it, checking the spam folder, like, did I miss something? Did I not apply for things? I had to apply for things? Whoa, hold on.
Yeah, you're totally right.
And you apply for things and you do good on an interview. And like, yeah, I nailed it. And you still might not get the job. You may not be a fit for the team. Because that's the other part where people are very tech savvy, but they don't have the interpersonal skill, the soft skills.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I tell them, like, all right, now let's say you get your resume right. It's look good. It tells you like you're sharing the accomplishments that you did, like what value you're gonna bring to the company, right? But now you come in for the interview and you can't sell yourself, right? So now it's like, oh, they don't really have the interpersonal skills to work with, to work within the organization or the team, and they turn you down. And now you're like, oh, no one wants to hire me. I'm getting interviews, but I'm not. But it's like, and that's the thing, like with whether it's online courses, college, boot camps, all that type of stuff, right? They'll teach you the actual information, which is great. Like you need the information, but I think sometimes they lack the how to work within a team, how to sell yourself, all those like those little things that is what actually gets you the job, because just knowing the information is half the battle. You know what I mean? Like you need to be able to sell what you know, and because there's a lot of people they're entry level, so they don't really have an experience. Maybe they didn't go to school in the field. So you have to sell yourself even harder, because if I'm hiring, right, and in my requirements, I say that, oh, you should have a computer science degree, but you did an online course, And like, so now tell me why I should give you a chance over the person who actually did go to college, which if you can convince me on that, right, you show me everything else that you did, right, then I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm with it. But if it's just, oh, I did this course, I'm like, all right, great, you know. So did the other 10 people.
Exactly. That's like almost on the bare minimum again. But they're showing, oh, the personality, the other, because as you said, the boot camp, school, all that stuff teaches the hard skills. This is how you code. This is how you use different tools.
Mm-hmm.
This is TestRail. This is Azure. This is Jira. All the hard skills, the technical stuff. But then the soft skills, how to communicate, because you're working as a team. You're not an
Mm-hmm.
independent person by yourself on an island. No, you have to talk to your developers, your team leads, and other testers to say, hey, I tested like this. I found these problems. I think these are possible solutions. How can we fix this?
Exactly. Exactly. So and that's what like part of the gap that I'm trying to help fill is, all right, like you guys have the knowledge, but we need to work on how we're going to communicate. We need to actually apply that knowledge, because in this Discord that I'm in, I'll ask, like, with a lot of newer people like trying to get into QA, and some just in QA, and I'll say, all right, here's this interview question, such as, all right, so this browser is being sunsetted, right? But and that's the initiative, and you guys find a bug. So let's say IE 11 is being sunsetted, right? Thank God, right? And now you find a bug that is affecting 1,000 people, right? In IE 11, what do you do? And a lot of times the first response is, I open a bug and we have to fix it. I'm like, well, dial it back. You got to see what's going on. And then I say, all right, so now what if it's only affecting like a very small percentage of people? Like, what do you do at that point? You know? And it's like, well, I still think we should fix it. I'm like, see, you gotta talk to people. You got like, and that's the interpersonal skills. Like, tell them, okay, if you have how would you test this, right? And they'll use like some standards they learned from like ISTQB and stuff like that, but then in the actual practical application, they don't capture the right information. I'm like, see, and that's the part you have to, like, just knowing the information, like you can regurgitate it, that's one thing, but how to actually use it, that's another part. That's the part that you guys really need to work on as you're trying to get a job, because if they ask you this question on an interview, that's going to be negative towards you.
Exactly, because you don't have the actual maybe job experience. But if you did a project where, oh, I had this problem and I solved it like this, and you can communicate how you solved it or how you would solve it, that can be different of a job or not.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you just regurgitate information from a textbook or a video you saw, that's, oh, A happened, so B must be the solution. It's not always black and white like that. Every instance or solution may have a different outcome depending on what you need. As you said, if you're sunsetting something versus something that's live, new in production, two different idea points or standpoints you're coming from.
Yep. So, like, and one of the things that I'm one of the live streams that I'm currently working on, we're actually going through it right now, is building a QA portfolio, right? And like this past Sunday, well, I'm saying this past Sunday, I'm not sure when the video is coming out, but you know what I mean? I what I did was I found an open source test case management system, right? One called Kiwi. And I'm like, all right, install this, right? We're going to use Docker. We're going to install Kiwi. And then on the live stream that we just did on Thursday, okay, well, now we're going to write test cases for a website, an actual popular website, you know, and we're going to enter it inside the test case management system. Now on future live streams, we're going to create a bug, like create a bug, a defect report. We're going to enter it into that. We're going to do a test run. We're going to try to see if we can link our automated tests to it, you know, just so you can actually have that, like that example of how you'd work on a day-to-day. So, and then you have something to show to whoever's interviewing you.
And that's the thing, because you'll read about something or see it work perfect, like, oh, this guy just demoed it, it worked perfect. But then when you try it, you run into a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your drivers aren't updated or something like compatible with your operating system. Like you
Yep.
actually getting that hands-on experience, like, oh, I had this problem, I solved it like this. Versus you just saying, okay, I saw a guy do X, Y, and Z. It should always work like that. So as you said,
So
building your portfolio and getting
yeah,
that hands-on experience means a lot.
yep. I think it's super helpful to especially if you don't have experience, right? When you come to the table with something to show, like, okay, I might not have actual working experience, but look at what I've done, and it says, oh, this is impressive. Like, because if you're interviewing, right, and somebody shows up to the interview, like they had a nice resume, they show up to the interview, and like you guys are talking, and he says, oh yeah, and they mentioned their create portfolio. You're like, your create portfolio? Like, what are you talking about? I never heard of create portfolio before, right? And then they say, oh, let me show you. And now they go to they pull up AWS EC2 instance URL, right? With the their test case management system, right? And it shows you like they writing test cases, all that type, like their test runs. It'd be like, wow, like this is crazy, right?
And that's the thing, because like, even like when I first got into the field, I didn't know what software testing was. I didn't know the whole
Mhm.
subfield. When I had the interview, they said, "Oh yeah, what do you know about the software testing life cycle?" And I'm like, "I know the software development life cycle." So yeah, but the testing part, and I'm like, "Okay, cool. I can figure out this part." I did a side project one day building a mobile application because I was curious about mobile development. I created this little application for referees, developed it, and had to test it because when I first deployed it to the App Store, it was terrible. It was a bad user experience. It would crash a lot. So I learned the points of testing because locally it works.
It works on my
It's
machine.
a success case. That all works. But when they typed in a bad text or improper text, a number in a certain field, it crashed. I said,
Mhm.
okay, now I learned about, oh, I had to test for this, positive, negative test cases, boundary testing, and all that stuff. And I high level went through the software testing lifecycle without realizing it. And I
Yeah,
demonstrated it by doing a side project without even realizing it helped me for a future job.
exactly.
So that's why if you have those curiosities or those other things like, hey, I have this current skill set, this basic skill set, but what about learning this or that and doing a project on this? And adding that to my portfolio or resume. It can't hurt.
Not at all.
As long as you can talk about it confidently. If you're in an
Exactly, and
interview,
that's what I tell them. Be able to explain what you're showing.
because if you're in an interview and you just freeze and like, well, I'm not sure. Then I'm like, well, did this person just make this part up on their resume or portfolio, or did they actually do it?
Yeah, and I tell people like, what you put on your resume, you better be able to explain it because like when I'm interviewing people, I'm going down the resume asking about, okay, like tell me about this and tell me about, and I just pick up like random points that I find interesting. Oh, tell me about this, tell me about that, and if I sense you're not telling the truth, I'm like, all right, this like it's over.
Exactly, and it's easy to tell because when you're confident, like, yeah, I did this, did that, versus, well, I think I did this, and then after, or this person helped me, and you're like, are you sure about any of this stuff? And you start second guessing it. It's obvious.
Like, and what happens to me when I'm the one being interviewed and they ask me about some technical thing that I have, I go into like details that they don't understand what's going on. I'm like, yeah, and then I went to like AWS and I did this, and then the EC2 and security groups and blah 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 blah. They're like, oh.
I've had those too, where even the interviewer, because normally the interview person may be just a level above you
Yeah.
on paper. But if you actually dive deeper into topics and stuff, you may know more than them.
hmm
Oh yeah, well, I had to switch this iframe, so I couldn't find this element, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and they have no idea what you're talking about. But that's why, like I said, this field is so much to learn. You can never say, "Oh, I know too much."
Never. Oh yeah. So I remember earlier I said there was a second thing. I had forgot what that was, but this is what it is, right? Like you said, there's always to learn. And when people say, oh, like they find it boring and stuff like that, I'm like, it's because you're like, you don't know what you're looking for, right? Because every single day that I go to work, I'm learning something new. Every time I'm online exploring, and I find a way to make it fun, to make it entertaining. So, because I have tons of fun in what I'm doing, right? But if you want to get to a particular spot, it's not about finding something that's fun. Make what you're doing that's going to get you there fun, right? And that's how I see it. That's how I've been able to learn so much and enjoy what I'm learning and continuing to progress, while like some other people, like they fall out and they go do something else, you know?
And that's the thing, the regular day-to-day job does get redundant and boring. But if you make like little mini challenges for yourself, like, okay, I built this framework out to do Selenium maybe, or do Appium. But now say, let me figure out how to make it more efficient. And get a little challenge for yourself. Okay, I accomplished this new thing. I feel good. It's fun to me. It's like playing a video game where you level up.
And guess what? That goes on your resume as well, right?
Because that's another thing that I talk about. I'll probably talk about it more, but your brag sheet, where every project that you do on a client site or actual company, write it down, write all the details down. Because I worked as a consultant before, where I was for a consulting firm. They leased me out to different companies doing QA work. And after like 3 or 4 companies, what I did for that first company, I'll forget how I did it, what tools did I use, what languages. So I'm like, if I keep track of it along the way, it's a lot easier to talk about it later on.
I gotta do that too, because there's so many stuff that I've done that I can't even remember. Like I've done more than I can remember. You know what I mean?
Thing. Sometimes my resume just says the basic high level of my job description, but I'm like, I also did this for a couple of months and I did this as well. And I'm like, I forgot to mention on my resume, but I did this as well. So having that documentation that you always just update. And even with the, okay, I did it like this. So if I need to reproduce it, I can do it again.
Yep. I don't know if you've encountered this with like the people that like you work with, whether not like at work, but that you train or coach and everything like that. But a lack of confidence or not wanting to brag about like the type of work that they do, or being humble. And I tell them, like, look, you, like, no one's gonna advocate for you as much as you can advocate for yourself. Stop trying to be quiet, because the reason that I would want to hire you is because of you believe that you're awesome, you're confident in your work, like, but you're trying to like, oh, I'm humble. I try to I don't like to brag about myself. I'm like, well, the next person who is bragging about themselves, they're gonna get the job that you want.
And that's the thing, because you're selling yourself in an interview. You're telling this employer or company why they should hire you. So if you don't give them a good enough reason to hire you, then why should they hire you?
Exactly. And one of the things too, like just the mindset as well, that if you don't believe you're the best at what you're doing, then you're not gonna take risks, move forward, try to figure new things out, because you're like, so for me, like whenever I'm working, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the best Q engineer to ever walk the planet, right? But at the same time, I would want Justin to believe that he's the best Q engineer to ever walk the planet as well. And now, like, and we push each other, like, oh, Justin, did you see this? Oh, I did that. Oh, I did this. Oh, cool. I can learn from that. You can learn from me, collaborate and all that type of stuff. It's not about, oh, I'm better than you. It's like, no, I'm the best in my own right, just like you're the best in your own right.
And that's the thing. It's about raising yourself up while putting other people down.
Exactly.
So you can say, okay, I know how to do this confidently without saying, well, he doesn't, he's nothing, he's dumb, all that stuff. No.
Exactly. It's like me.
Yourself.
I want you to learn, like if I learn something new, right? I want you to learn it too, so that now the value that I might be bringing here, you can bring that value there, and you just show like how valuable that you are, how valuable that QA is.
Exactly. And like, that's the thing, because a lot of people get scared about, oh, it's competition. No, especially in the QA space, there's so many different jobs and different subsections that the more people like you that and me that can enlighten people, say, okay, this is what QA is. This is the entry level part. These are the different fields you're going to branch off into. The more education people get, the bigger the community gets. Because like I said, development field, that community is strong. The QA space, not as strong.
Yeah. And I'll say this though, like the only time you would feel that it's competition is if you don't want to get better, you don't want to learn more. And now I come and apply at your company, and and it's like, oh, well, he thinks he's better from me. Like, no, you didn't do what you had to do to to get there,
And going back to what you said before about people who like interview and stuff, the first thing people have like imposter syndrome where they don't feel confident. They're like, I think I know the skill set. The other extreme is people who brag. So there's the whole part is the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the same message presented two different ways or be taken two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
If you just say confidently, I can do X, Y, and Z versus your demeanor and your bragging about it, that'll be received two different ways.
Yep.
So just staying confident, like, yes, I can do this, do that. I also can do this as well, versus being boisterous and being belittling, saying, yeah, of course I know how to, of course I can do this.
Yeah.
So that's why.
For me, like what I just do, like when I would get questions about, I just tell them like how I've done it, like, oh yeah, I did this, and then like on this team we had this situation and I navigated it that way, and I just say what I've done, right? I don't have to like say, oh, because this person was this way and that. I'm like, no, this is just how this is how I navigated the situation. Like when you get the question like, oh, tell me about a time you had conflict in the team, right? They're like, oh, well, this person and they did this, and it's like, it sounds like you're complaining at that point, right? But it's more, for me, it's more like, this is how I navigated a tough situation to get a successful outcome.
Exactly, like I said, the same message, different presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of those questions are loaded. They're gonna see if you just badmouth your former company or coworkers, because they're like, okay, if they're doing this right now to their past employer, if they join our team, they may do this to us later on. So I hide this negative person, they can do the same thing to us after. So always have that positive spin on your stories or presentation can help a lot.
Exactly, 100% right.
Two more. So
all right,
we've been talking for a while about your journey, different experiences. But what's your favorite part about being in the QA space?
it's a lot, right? So I would say for me, I love figuring out new things, and I call it like pushing testing further, right? Whenever I come into a roadblock, I'm like, all right, cool, this is good, because now I'm going to have to figure out how to get around it. And so, and that's how I got familiar enough with things like Docker, with AWS, with the Selenium grid, just different technologies. I just love exploring those technologies, and finding a way to utilize that for whatever project that I'm working on. We'll have a need and we don't think that it's possible. And I go and I search and I put something together that's going to make it, that's going to accomplish our goals, and that's my favorite part, really. Because like you said earlier, like everything else kind of gets redundant, creating like test scenarios, executing deployment, like all of those are the same, right? But the parts that you really, really enjoy is when you get to figure out new things and you get to see it in action, So that's the other part, is actually mentoring and helping people who are in the industry, whether they're looking to they're at the entry level or they're more advanced, but they are looking to learn new things, explore new options and stuff like that. So those two aspects, right? From the personal level is the figuring out new technologies, but from working with other people is just being a mentor, being a lead in the space to just get them to that next level.
Okay, so now I actually have 3 more questions. My bad.
All right.
So the first one, what's your current team structure? Like how many developers, testers, all that stuff? So people get a general idea of how different teams work in different companies.
So we have one Scrum Master, one product owner. I'm the QA on the team. Just until like earlier this week, we had 5 developers, but we just split the team into 2, where it's going to be 3 developers, me, and the Scrum Master and the product owner, and then the other team's going to have 3 developers, and they're getting a QA person. So that's how that particular team is structured. It's usually like a 3 to 4 ratio to 1 QA engineer for the most part.
Yeah, I have 4 developers, so yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next one, because one of the things is communication. A lot of people in our field are very introverted, and tech generally. That's a generic stereotype, nerdy, introverted people. What advice would you give people to like break out of their shell and become better communicators?
As you said, like I am very introverted, right? So it's like, why do you have the YouTube channel? But it's all about what your goals are. You know, if you want, like, when you have to interview, you have to speak. You know, and maybe when you're done, you need to go back. You need to go and decompress and stuff like that. But you need to. Uh, you need to find something that's hard to do. Do something that you don't like to do, and then that's going to a lot of times, once you start doing something over and over that you started off not liking to do, you're going to end up like liking to do it. But you need to build that confidence. You need to where it makes you more confident in everything that you do, right? Something that you don't like to do to start off with, that's going to make you more confident in everything else that you do. For me, for example, 3 years ago, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And that's giving me like a new type of confidence that like I've always been all right talking in front of people when I have to, but I'll get like, super nervous, right? But now, like, if you can go to a competition where it's just you and another guy in the middle of the mat, right? Where and you guys are trying to kill each other for 5 minutes, then you can do anything. Right? So it's really about doing hard things when you're not forced to. So then when you are in the situation, it's a lot easier to manage. And that's how I would say to build that confidence, get out of the shell, go do something that you don't like to do.
And that's the thing. Not a hats make sense in the background. I was going to ask you about them. Make more sense now. And like, even with me, on paper, I'm an introvert. And you're like, but you have a YouTube channel.
Exactly.
First off, like public speaking and stuff like that, I speak very fast. I mumble a lot. So growing up, having those faults, I was scared to talk to people because they'd be like, well, what'd you say? Or I'll get made fun of about that. But I embraced it. I said, okay, it's kind of a flaw almost in my personality, but I can work on it. It's not a permanent thing. I can practice speaking more in public. When people say, okay, can you repeat that? I don't take it personal. I say, okay, they're trying to help me, my communication. So just having that positive spin on certain feedback. Because even with my YouTube channel, when I first started out, I got you get the positive comments, 8, 9 in a row. Then you got one negative comment. What's this person saying? Can't understand anything that they're talking about. They should quit YouTube. And I'm like, at first it would bother me. I'm like, I spin that, okay, what are they trying to say? Their presentation is terrible. What are they actually trying to say? Oh, he's speaking too fast. I can slow down my speech. That's the positive spin on it. Instead of just dwelling and crying that, okay, people don't think I can communicate properly, I can work on myself to better myself.
So with that, like, one thing that I do too, because like when I make a mistake, I just make fun of myself, right? So I on my soundboard, right, I'll like say something wrong or like do something wrong. I just play like a sound like one of those, right? And I'm like, all right, keep it moving, you know, like if you can accept your flaws and your mistakes, then it doesn't really matter as much when somebody says what you already know, and then if they say something that you don't know, use that to learn, you know. Whether it's positive or negative, just take the feedback and keep moving forward, you know?
Exactly. Remembering that no one's perfect. We're all work in progress. So okay, this feedback, constructive criticism, I'm using to help me. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna hate
exactly.
that person in a presentation. I'll use it to help me in some way. Either to help me or just ignore it. But it's not gonna bring me backwards.
I don't know if this has happened to you, right? But when I first started making these videos, and it's like not really getting many views or anything like that. But then one of my earliest live streams, I don't even remember what I was talking about, but I got a comment on that where the person was like, "Oh, thanks for the video. How can I get into the field? What do I need to do?" And I'm like, "Hey, like this crappy video that I just started, somebody actually watched it to ask me this question." So I'm like, negative, like whatever negative you get, you just keep it moving, you know, because at the end of the day, like I'm here, like my main goal is to help people who are looking to be just in the tech industry in particular. I focus on QA because I'm in QA, but I know a lot about all the other areas because we work with them, right?
Yeah.
But if there's negativity, like, oh, all right, cool. If it's valid, adjust. If not, then keep moving forward because the the majority of the people who are there are there because you're adding some type of value into their life.
Exactly. Again, and those first videos where you get like 5 views, 4 of them are you watching it yourself. And then you get that first real comment like, oh snap, someone actually got put stuff out of my video. Like that's
Mhm.
encouraging.
Exactly. So, and I'll tell you this too, right? Uh, when I'm browsing through Reddit and the software testing um uh subreddits and stuff like that, you see how much there is a need for the type of work that we do. Just the questions and that's one of the reasons that on one of the shows that I do Q&A where I'm taking those questions from Reddit and other sources and I'm answering those questions because I know it's not like a lot of other people have those questions. I'm just making it like public because maybe that not everyone's going to be on Reddit knowing to find it there. So I'm just trying to make it more visible, answer the questions in general for everyone. But there's like a huge need in the area that we're just trying to fill, you know.
Exactly. And last question, we touched on it a little bit, but what's your general advice for people getting into the field or are newly in the field and trying to take that next step?
So that advice is we talked about competition earlier, right? But you do have a lot of competition because if you like, on LinkedIn, they'll tell you how many people applied for a job. There might be like 500 people applying for a job, 1,000 people applying for a job. The first thing that you need to do, you need to continuously work, right? Work harder than everyone else who's applying for that job. If you have to wake up early, if you have to go to sleep late, if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to get into the field, you have to put in the work, right? And like learn new technologies. Like don't stop. Like I'm a manual tester. Well, someone who does manual and automated, they're gonna take that from you, right? You just keep pushing, and apply for everything. Make sure your resume is how we spoke about earlier, and prepare for the interviews. Build your QA portfolio. There's a formula that you can follow that's going to make you stand out from those competitors. That's what they are. They're competitors who are trying, like, they want the same job that you want, right? You have to stand out, but you like nothing is going to be given to you. No one owes you anything. You have to put in the work, and you just have to outwork everybody so you can actually get to where you want to get to.
Definitely agree with all of that. Like a lot of people feel like I said previously, have the skill set chart should be rewarded and given a job. Nothing is given to you in life. That's a general life lesson.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You gotta apply yourself because closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't
100%.
say I want or need this, then how do people know that you actually want or need it?
100%.
But one last time, first off, thank you for coming on, sharing your time. But one last time, what's your YouTube URL? I'll put it on the screen now, but what is it verbally?
It's Tech Coach Ralph, and that's like across all the social medias. And follow me, subscribe to the channel, and reach out to me because I'm here to help everybody. So I've been talking to a few different people, helping them with their resumes, all of that. Trying to fill in for, like, I know Justin's super busy, so trying to fill in for him as well.
I keep telling people, because I spoke to other people on this channel doing this process of giving feedback and interviewing and stuff. Start a YouTube channel, whether you're 10 years in or just starting out, to just track your journey and progress. Because certain things that you and I talk about or are experiencing, that entry-level person may not be experiencing. So it's unrelatable.
Yeah.
Or if they have another person who's just maybe one step ahead of them and say, oh, when I first started out, I did X, Y, and Z. You can relate to this better.
Very good point. Yep. I
So
wish I did that when I had started.
I wish I did too. So
I think a lot of times,
journey, just try to document it in some way.
I think a lot of times people, they're scared to look foolish because they don't know certain things, which is probably like why we didn't start off earlier, right? But I always find out that you know more than most of the people that, like, you're going to come in contact with, and they can benefit from what you do know, and what you don't know, they'll just get it somewhere else.
Exactly. That's
Simple,
the whole,
right?
That's the whole part of knowing that no one's perfect. You know what you know, you can share your stuff, maybe help one person. That's one person that has their life changed or their question answered. That's better than nothing.
100%. Yep.
So once again, like I said, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'll leave all your social media links, your YouTube, all that stuff in the description below. But have a good day.
You too. I appreciate it, man. It was a pleasure.